if I asked that man if he was mowing the yard, I want to go hit, the lawnmower stopped. We were gone.
That's awesome. That's good stuff. Yeah, that's
He was accessible.
yeah,
Stack of papers. Hey, Dad, I want to go play catch. Boom. My mom could tell you, I couldn't tell you how many times he walked in the basement door. Garage was downstairs where he pulled in, come through the basement. The greatest thing about the North, we all had basements instead of Florida. We have
yeah.
nothing,
I didn't
right?
have a basement.
So
we lived on a slab, but yeah.
Got a basement. He comes in. He's still in his loafers from work, and I'm grabbing gloves. I'm like, let's go play catch. It's not let me change my shoes. It's not let me take my tie off. It's just turn around and go play catch before he changes his mind.
Welcome to another episode of Kaizen Cast. Small steps, big changes. Everybody knows our motto. You know, what we like to do here is try to help others, but that's what I do on a weekly basis, but I also like to have guests on. And this guest here today is not only an amazing man, but he's a good friend of mine that I met down here, 5 years ago, because I walked into his baseball academy with my 11-year-old son at the time, who was, 7 or 8, and he wanted to learn how to hit. And we had no idea what was going on down here, and we found this place, Total Baseball Academy, run by Ted Rose. Looked up his bio, and as everybody knows, I'm a baseball guy, and I'm like, babe, this is the guy we got to go see. So here we are today, fast forward, and not only has my son been through the program here, but with Ted, but Ted has become a friend of mine, and I truly, truly mean that from the bottom of my heart. So Ted, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and yeah, he does look that good in person. Yeah. So and he's in dry January right now, everybody. So look out. But you guys, there's nothing you can do because he's been married for how many years?
25, yes.
25. Yeah. Happy anniversary. 25 to a beautiful young lady. But let's get right into it. I want to talk about your baseball career. I want to talk about your life. I want to see where this kind of goes today. But let's start with, born and raised in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of give me fill everybody in, since let's start from when you were a kid and get into high school, and then where we went from there.
Yeah, so born and raised in Eastern Ohio. Grew up right across the river from Wheeling, West Virginia. Coal mine, steel mill, power plant, anything moving up and down on the barge. It was, rural community, but very blue collar.
I was going to say blue collar.
About an hour and a half from Pittsburgh, so right on the tri-state there. So if you can kind of picture that pocket of the world right there.
Yep.
Grew up middle class. Dad taught school for a little while and then worked for the state education department. Mom was a secretary for the EPA. Have an older sister, Michelle, a younger sister, Stephanie. Mom and Dad were dumb enough to have us all bang, bang, bang. We were all in high school at the same time, so all in college at the same time. I'm kind of a normal, middle class America. Neither one of us or kids had cars, at 16, but the town was so damn small, you just walked where you were going.
That's crazy.
And kind of, like everybody in that generation, we were latchkey kids from the time I was in, I think, 4th grade. Mom went back to work, and my older sister was in 6th grade. My little sister was in 3rd grade. So, we're letting ourselves in the house at 2:30, and Mom and Dad aren't home till 5:30. Right. So, you're doing your homework and running the neighborhood.
Yep.
And that was back when you could do that.
Exactly, same.
So, much like a lot of people in our generation in that pocket right there, it was built, a bunch of the neighbor buddies playing sports, and it went seasonal up there, obviously, because of the weather, probably same as you in Connecticut.
Absolutely.
Summertime we were playing baseball. In the fall, the football would come out in the backyard, and then, when it was snowing, you went inside and you got on the basketball court.
Absolutely.
And then you run it back again.
Yep. Were you a 3-sport athlete all the way through high school?
I was. I played baseball and basketball all the way through high school. Never played a down of football, which is in my area, like if you're an athlete, and you're a male, you're playing football,
Right.
and you're wrestling,
Right.
and those
Oh,
are
yeah,
two big
wrestling.
sports in that Ohio Valley area. Like, you can run, throw, and catch. You're on the football field.
Yeah.
I'd watched a buddy break his leg in 7th grade tryouts. I'm like, I'm not doing that.
I don't
No,
blame
thank you.
I don't blame
No, thank you. I'm good.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
So, and we couldn't start playing like down here. Shoot, man, they put kids in pads when they're 6 years old and helmets, and we couldn't do any of that stuff back home till 7th grade.
Right.
So, and then when I was in 7th grade, shoot, I was probably 65 pounds, and and you had to play with the 8th graders too. I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah,
So,
you get killed.
we'll see you later.
Yeah, pass.
I'll just work on my basketball in the wintertime, so
Right.
we'll be good there.
Right. So you went hoops,
Yeah.
then baseball,
Yeah.
and then when did you? I mean, were you like a superstar little leaguer? Were you?
So so back home when you could start playing, they called it junior sports, youth sports. That was back before internet and all that stuff. You have to go to the office and get the sign up sheet for little league.
Yeah.
And so you could play. There was no t-ball. It was coach pitch. It was 6, 7, and 8. You could play coach pitch. So I heard the morning announcements, and like after school, I grabbed come home and got my sheet. And Dad signed me up because we're playing catch in the backyard and a lot of wiffle ball. And Dad loved his baseball, and we were always farting around in the backyard. And like, now I'm going to get a uniform. This is going to be great. And he wouldn't sign the sheet. He says, "Nah, we're not ready for that yet." So I didn't ask for a reason. So whatever, we still played catch in the backyard and still hit the wiffle balls.
Time out. Because I know how I was. Were you pissed?
Yeah.
Did you make a stink?
No.
No. 'Cause
But
you knew back then.
but at 7, I went and got the sheet again,
Yeah.
and he said no again.
Oh.
And at 8, no again. So the 9-year-old season rolls around. Now I'm out of what coach pitch is. I'm now into we're playing. It's kid pitch.
Yeah.
And all of my buddies that I know have been playing for 3 years, and I'm still in the backyard playing catch with my dad and chasing fly balls and hitting wiffle balls, and so I should have been smarter. I bypass Dad and take the sheet to Mom. And I'm crying to Mom at 9.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Mom, I want to play." So she's like, "Well, we got to ask your dad." So I'm like, I've already asked him 3 times. I'm 0 for 3. So I hiding in my bedroom, listening down the hallway. Yeah. And she's like, "Mike, you got to let him play." He's like, "Well," and Dad was traveling for work a lot. When he worked for the State Teachers Association, he bargained the financial ends of the school systems for the teachers unions. So where he worked out of Columbus, Ohio, which was 96 miles from our house, he may be in Ashtabula up near Cleveland. He may be in Toledo. So he wasn't home all the time.
And you drove everywhere back then.
And he was a road warrior.
Yeah.
So I hear him tell Mom, "Well, if Charlie Bean can get him, then he can play this year. But if Charlie can't get him on his team, he's going to wait another year." Charlie Bean, local attorney in town, grew up a few towns down from Dad, big basketball player, really good guy, had a kid that was a year older than me. Dad liked this guy a lot, so he wasn't just going to turn me loose with anybody, but if Charlie gets me, I can play. Thank God Charlie got me. So I got to start playing at 9. And then it was hell bent from there. But asking Dad,
did you have to go to Did your mom have to go to Charlie and beg him?
You know what? I'm sure there was probably some greasing of the wheel.
Yeah, there was somebody talking.
When when you get into the draft, we didn't have tryouts back then. I think all the sheets went on a freaking table in the auditorium, and the 8 coaches just started going, "Yeah, I'll take this one and I'll take this. I know this kid from last year."
Sure. Right.
Well, nobody knows me. I haven't played, and I think Charlie was probably able to wait a couple rounds. But if somebody else got me, I don't know if Charlie greased the wheels. Said, "Well, I'll give you these 2 guys, but I got to have that one." Yeah. I don't know. I never asked him, and Charlie passed this year, and I never got to ask him. But I'm not exactly sure how that all played out, but it did play out, thank God. And I ended up on Charlie's team, and actually ended up on Charlie's team a few more times over the years,
I'm sure.
which was great. And graduated with his son, which was awesome. But
how was he as a player?
Really, he was a 3-sport guy growing up. Brian, and he was that undersized guy, man, that was good at everything. He was our quarterback sophomore year, point guard sophomore year, and starting third baseman in baseball sophomore year. Played right next to me, could swing it, but 5'9", and not a lot of guys are looking for 5'9" guys out there. But with Dad, I asked him years later, and I was an adult then, and it just, I was like, why didn't you let me play? He says, well, I knew you liked what we were doing in the backyard, and you liked the fly balls, and you liked the ground balls, and you liked the swinging. And he goes, I didn't want anybody to ruin that. Wow. So.
And imagine that, it's funny because his sole purpose was to protect you. But as kids, we're like, why is he fucking us?
Right.
Yeah, like, why is he But like, truly, he did. And that's why I always go back to, we talked about this off air about like such the line of communication that we should have a better job with our family, with our kids, and literally explain to them what our thought process is. Because as a little kid, you get yelled at a lot of times and you don't even know why you're getting yelled at. And like, you're not supposed to do this. Well, why not?
Right.
Or you do know why not, but this is why you're getting yelled at. So like, I think that, like, it's funny that you hear later on in life, you're like, oh, that kind of made sense. When at 7 or 8, it didn't make sense because all my friends were doing it.
Well, and I look at it now, especially in the business that I am right now, obviously, I'm training kids and we live in Southwest Florida, which is one of the top 4 hotbeds for youth baseball in the country.
It's amazing.
And, I've got kids playing at 6, 7, travel ball stuff. So when my dad here, he's a baseball guy, and he's telling me, I don't want you playing, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
But now as an adult that does what I do,
it made so much sense.
And and I tell this story too about my father. My dad played college, and he played a little bit of pro ball, and he coached high school baseball and had a state runner-up in his last year of coaching. Like, the guy loved the sport. I mean, he was all into it. Not one time in my entire life did that man ever ask me to play catch or to go to the field. But I'm telling you, if I asked that man and he was mowing the yard, I want to go hit, the lawnmower stopped. We were gone.
That's awesome. That's good stuff. Yeah, that's
He was accessible.
Yeah,
Stack of papers. Hey, Dad, I want to go play catch. Boom. My mom could tell you, I couldn't tell you how many times he walked in the basement door. Garage was downstairs where he pulled in, come through the basement. The greatest thing about the North, we all had basements instead of Florida. We have nothing,
I didn't
right?
have a basement.
So,
we lived on a slab, but
got a basement. He comes in. He's still in his loafers from work, and I'm grabbing gloves. I'm like, let's go play catch. It's not let me change my shoes. It's not let me take my tie off. It's just turn around and go play catch before he changes his mind.
Yep. My dad used to do the same thing. Come home dirty as a motherfucker. Plumber. No matter how tired he was, he'd go out that door with me. Yeah. And then I think, man, I used to force my kids, my older kids, to go do these things, and like, wow.
Guilty. So when you sit around and people say, nature versus nurture, are you born a certain way or are you raised a certain way? I wasn't raised the way that I tried to coach my son.
Right.
Wasn't even close to it.
Me neither.
Till Mama intervened and said, hey, you're fired and you're not going to do this. So I got fired by my wife. It was the best firing I've ever had. And I became the dude that just sat down the right field line in my chair and waved when he got on first base. Thumbs up, he knew where we were sitting,
right,
and was completely out of the mix, and just let him do his thing. And it was never, hey, let's go play catch, let's go do this, and just back the hell off of it.
Yeah, because I told you this off air too, which is, we're a blended family of 5 now. Yeah. My 11-year-old is not my birth son, but he's my son. But my actual baby son now is 19 at IMG, and I tell everybody all the time, I literally almost ran him out of baseball when he was 12 years old.
Right.
My father never would have did that. Like, so I sometimes, because we know so much, it could be, and maybe stuff that we were eating inside of us, we dumped on them, and and we were
I
also
think for
young.
me, it was that right there. There was some stuff when he was younger, and we were talking earlier before we started rolling, how you're kind of lost when it's all done, when your career's done playing and you're kind of lost. I was in that 5-year, window of being kind of lost, and you hear about people kind of projecting their stuff to their kid, like, well, maybe he'll be the guy that fulfills that prophecy. I always thought I would never be that guy, but
Yeah.
there was a small window where I was that guy.
Yeah.
Because
So
you go
let's-
into my business,
let's
I
talk
never
about-
did that with my kids that I was training.
Right. So why are you doing it?
So
with-
why am I doing it?
I don't know.
But it took Mama, and thank God, and I look back at it now, and when she said you're fired, Ted. It was about 6 months later. I was like, oh my God, she was so right. I should have been fired like 3 years ago.
Yeah, like a long
Like,
time
where
ago.
were you at then?
Yeah, yeah. Well, she couldn't get. Nobody could get through to guys like us, right? Like so. Until I say this all the time. Until, like, my wife does this to me all the time. She's a psych major too, so she loves this crazy head. So she could dissect it, but like, they put things in our brain to let us digest it and think that we decided that it. So it took 3 years for you to. She probably was doing it the whole time, and you were just like, "Fuck this! I'm not listening. I'm not listening." And then it finally just kind of like, okay, now enough's enough, because you were also, her baby was getting attacked, and then the mama bear comes,
showed up.
Yeah. So tell us about, like, because what most people don't know is how far you went in your baseball career and how good you were. And by the way, I looked it up. You started at South Carolina?
Yeah.
So, guys, you have to understand something. Everybody listening, 1993, I graduated in 95 because I did an extra year of school like most kids do now. I was so ahead of the times. I was doing it for grade purposes, not so much to hold myself back for age-wise, but it helped me out either way. But 93 to go from Ohio to South Carolina was literally impossible, just so people understand that, because to get from the north to the south very rarely happened, correct?
Right.
I mean, it was so. Right. This is the kind of athlete we're talking about right here. So here's the other thing. High school. Well, tell us about your high school career, and then how you got to South Carolina first.
So high school, started as a sophomore.
Shortstop.
Shortstop. Once again, baseball's not huge in my area. Yeah. I wouldn't say that it's great baseball. Yeah. Junior year for the conference we were in, ended up the player of the year in that, and then that summer, my junior year, I played for actually a travel ball team when there wasn't travel ball. It was in Weirton, West Virginia, which is like 45 miles north of me, and a guy there had put a team together, a pocket of a bunch of guys throughout the Ohio Valley, and put it on it. And I really didn't want to go play on it. I'd played on the local Legion team since I was 15.
Which everybody should understand, Legion was an honor back then. Like, if you made the Legion team and you were and back then they had, well, where I was from, they had like a varsity and a JV Legion. Like, you made, like, so it was like it was like the biggest thing. It was like playing varsity baseball. So at an even higher level, because you had some kids that were so much older, they could be 19 or 20 or something at the time and still play Legion. Yeah. So go ahead.
So I played that freshman and sophomore, 15 and 16 on the Legion team. All my buddies were on that team, and obviously you want to play with your buddies, right? But Dad's like, look, you're already one of the better ones on the team, and you're a 16-year-old. He goes, you need to go play on this team that you're going to be pushed. There's guys that are going to be better than you there. And there were. Yeah. And I went and played. That was my 17-year-old summer, and we were lucky enough. Old Pony League baseball was 13, 14 age. Yep. A lot of guys don't know they had another division. 15, 16 was Colt, and 17, 18 they called it Palomino ball. And there wasn't a whole lot of recruiting restrictions on it, so you could get some kids from wherever. So we were playing in that 17, 18-year-old division and ended up winning the World Series that year. Well, the World Series and the regional was held in Greensboro, North Carolina. So we won the Greensboro regional, and we just stayed there. And then we ended up sticking around, and we won the World Series. Well, in that 14-day period, there was a lot of teams from the Carolinas, and back then coaches actually had to scout you.
Right.
They had to like see you in person.
Yeah. No, like,
So Clemson was there, South Carolina was there, Winthrop was there, a lot of those in that, Carolina, and that's where South Carolina had seen me, and I'd done fairly well, and got a phone call from them, October time of my senior year, and went down for a visit, and got off the plane. It's the SEC. It's 10 hours south. It's not going to be freezing here every year.
right.
Like kind of knew getting off the plane before I saw the facilities. I'm like, if the facilities are anything what I think they are, I think I know where I'm going to be.
Right.
And that was, I'd taken a couple recruiting trips up north, but that was, I knew where I was going to end up once I got off.
Did you have any like, were you nervous, like, even when that summer, your 17-year-old summer, when you said, okay, because listen, when we were kids, you didn't really travel. Like, you were with your family and you're with your buddies, and like, so to pack your shit up and go, were you like, fuck, this is like, I'm not sure I'm ready for this, and you just did it?
Well, it was one of those things, Dad was like, well, you want to see how far you can take it, so you can't just sit around and play with the same guys. So that was the summer of my junior year, and then the next year, once again, I think I'm going to go back and play for this team. We're going to run it back, right? We had a bunch of guys returning, and a couple younger guys in the area that would filled in those roles really nice. Well, a team from Cincinnati calls. They're playing Connie Mack baseball.
Yeah.
So it's Midland, and Midland's been around for 40 years. It's still going.
Yeah.
And you look at the list of guys that played for Midland, and Ken Griffey and Barry Larkin, and the list goes on, and they're like, hey, we want you to come play this summer for us. Now that's 5 hours from home. Like, I'm leaving. I'm leaving. I'm going to live with a family over there.
Yeah.
Like, bye, Mom. Like, I'm going to start college early.
Yeah.
So went and played for them. Met a whole nother group of guys, man, where I thought, man, I showed up, I'm like, holy crap, there's a Ted Rose in every town. Like, this
yeah.
And you get humbled, and then you catch up.
Yeah,
right. It's like, hit or you don't play.
Right.
So we won the Connie Mack World Series that year out in New Mexico. So back-to-back years, I'm on winning teams. Like, life's easy.
And traveling the country.
Yeah.
Which nobody
seeing a lot
did.
of everything.
That is so cool.
And then go to South Carolina and show up in the fall and get completely humbled. Because I think I'm a good player. And I look around, I'm like, okay, everybody throws 90 miles an hour. Everybody has a secondary pitch that they can throw for a strike.
Yeah.
And these guys all have 45 pounds of muscle on me and beards. I'm like,
how much what were you weighing when you walked in there?
Oh, shoot, man. I think I graduated high school at 162 pounds, 6'1", not very muscled,
Right. Just again, so everybody understands, 1993, the weight training that goes on now, I'm in better shape at 52 than I was when I was playing college baseball. Right. The way the weight training system, there was none. Like, I mean, it was there, like, and you did after the fall season, you had your winter workouts were only, whatever, but there's no like training throughout the year like they do now, right? Like, I mean, so yeah, now you understand.
And you didn't have the information either,
Yeah, like
shoot, my first shoulder surgery because I was trying to lift in high school and hurt my shoulder.
Right.
I was just doing what the football players did, which is not what we do as baseball players.
Right.
But you don't know what you don't know, right? So I show up at South Carolina, and fall's always 6 weeks of inter squadding and practicing, and I'm not all that good. I'm getting at the plate, I'm getting overmatched, and I'm like, did I make a mistake here? Like, I'm best player in the High Valley. Like, well, that doesn't go real far at the University of South Carolina. So once again, I mean, like, you got a couple options, right? You figure out why you're scuffling, and most of it was I hadn't seen that level of pitching in an extended period of time.
Right.
You'd see that when you were playing some of that travel ball once a week. Right. And you'd take your 0 for 3.
Yeah.
But then I'd beat up somebody the next day for 3 hits and like hitting 500. Right. I'm hitting 500. Right? Yeah. And you'd get somebody that handcuff you, and it was a 0 for 2 with a walk.
Yeah.
Somebody but then I'd beat up somebody with 3 hits. Like,
Right.
you know, well, you get to South Carolina,
know
I'm
exactly.
getting it handed to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know why. And then I start figuring out, it's like, all right, man, you're getting your step down late. You need to really stay in that weight room because some of these guys are just overmatching you strength-wise.
Strength-wise.
And then you roll into spring and I'm starting to catch up.
Oh, yeah.
And play a few games and I'm not playing, and all of a sudden they throw you a DH start and you get a couple hits and it buys you another start.
Yep.
And before you know it, you're DHing.
Yep.
And then the next year you're playing third. And it's like, and just 6 weeks ago I thought I was terrible.
Right.
You know, it's just, all right, put your head down and figure it out.
And that's the game. That's the game. That's the game of life, too. That's why I love baseball so much, because it humbles your ass so quick. Yeah. Just when you think you got it figured out, it kicks you right
in the mouth.
Yeah, easy. Easy. Like life.
Yep.
Like life. It's,
So I was there. I was a position player for 2 years, and then went to. We talked about the Cape. Went to the Cape summer after my sophomore year, and once again I thought I was a hitter. And for those that don't know, the Cape, it's the best summer collegiate league in the country, where guys get together and play with a wooden bat in their hand.
Yep.
First time I've got that bad boy in my hand. Now I'm hitting in the middle of the lineup at South Carolina, 2, 3, and 4. I hit 179 with 1 home run my first year up in the Cape, and I come home and told my dad, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do that at the next level. Put the wood in my hand, and all of a sudden I'm not a good hitter again. Right. Now it's either stick around and find out. Do I have enough time to find it out? I got 1 more year.
Yeah.
Before the draft hits. Got 2 to play, 1 before the draft hits me junior year. Always had a good arm. Maybe I'll give this pitching thing a little bit more of a try.
Oh, wow.
So I transferred to Kent, started learning how to pitch. So just knowing myself as a player, I just didn't think I had enough that if I was lucky enough to get drafted again, I don't think I'd have stuck very long in the minor leagues. It might have been a quick half season.
Again, did you get drafted in high school?
Got drafted out of high school.
Again, he's such a humble guy. Everybody, just so you know that, like, I didn't even know that, so that's unbelievable.
Rangers got me out of high school in the 36th round, one of those throw-in rounds,
I would have liked to throw in. By the way, I would have liked to throw in round when I was playing.
But at 18, if you don't know what you're doing in life, you probably go.
Yeah.
And they send you home at 19 and a half because you couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, especially.
And I needed college to grow mentally and physically and emotionally.
Yeah.
And so you fast forward to my dad after his playing career was done and his coaching career was done. So you got to go back a few years when us kids were in elementary school. He loaded Mom and my sisters up. We drove to Daytona. He's going to umpiring school. He's got to get his baseball fix. Can't coach anymore. Can't play anymore. So he's got to get his baseball fix.
How was he doing his other job?
So he had built up enough time with the state to take 8 weeks off. And with the teachers, you could bank days off. So he's just banking them. He knew this was coming. He's banking them. He's never calling in sick, just banking them up. So we're 2 months over in Daytona at Harry Wendelstadt's baseball camp. I did kindergarten there. Michelle, my older sister, was in 2nd grade, and Stephanie, she just stayed home with Mom, I think, went to the beach every day. But Dad went through umpiring school, everything that a professional umpire would do, and came home, and at the time, he was doing like some high school stuff prior to all that, but started doing some small D3 stuff, and the D3 stuff led to a few years later, he had a contract with the Big Ten, and then he had a contract with the Big Ten, the Mid-American Conference, and then the last 10 years, contract with the Big Ten, Mid-American Conference, and the Big East. And he got his baseball fix. So on the weekends in the spring, that guy was umpiring.
Some of my games.
I'm sure he did, especially if you were at Pitt or WVU or
Villanova.
and anything like Central to West PA, and definitely Morgantown. So that's where he got his baseball fix. So I'm not exactly sure where that story got turned off when we were talking about going back to how I got to Kent.
Yeah, how you got to Kent.
Because I was like, I told him one day we're up at the Cape, and I'm like, I'm scuffling my ass off, having a great time up there, love it, beautiful,
awesome.
And had met some great friends. But I'm like, dude, humble pie, eating it every night.
Yeah.
And I said, I need to learn how to pitch. And he goes, well, pitch then. And I was like, yeah, but I don't think I can do it at South Carolina. We kind of had, I knew what was coming back, and like, are they gonna let me fart around with this while I was playing third base and like.
And hitting in the middle of the lineup.
Yeah, I'm like, it's probably, so I talked to my coach, and like they always say, yeah, we'll let you do whatever. Yeah. But I still need to learn how to pitch, right? And my dad's like, hey, dude, there's an old guy up here at Kent that's churning them out. He's churning them out. Like everything he touches turns to gold. And Ken had recruited me out of high school. Danny Hall was there at the time, and they had recruited me out of high school. So I called him, and I said, Danny, I put in for my transfer at South Carolina. I said, I want to come to Kent. I want to work with Dick Schoonover. He goes, Teddy, I just took the job at Georgia Tech. I was like, He goes, well, I'm trying to hire Dick down here at Georgia Tech. So I'm like, okay. He goes, do you want to come to Georgia Tech? I said, Danny, I really want to learn how to pitch, but I don't want to put my bat down yet either. And I said, I know I can do both at Kent. He goes, you can do both here. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
So the assistant coach at Kent was Rick Remblack. He got the head job. So I called Rick, and I said, Rick, I want to pitch, and I want to pitch with Dick Schoonover. He goes, well, he's interviewing down at Tech. I said, yeah, I know. I said, I spoke to him, but I also know that if he doesn't take that job, he's staying there. So I'm going wherever he goes.
Right.
So
you had spoken to Dick.
So I'd actually worked with Dick a little bit up in Falmouth. He was the pitching coach up in Falmouth,
so
a little bit under
so
NCAA, under the cloud of darkness.
Yeah.
So I'd worked with him, loved him. He was in his late 60s. He was an old school guy with a very new aged approach. He used a lot of, he did up to Cleveland Clinic all the time. We were doing mental imagery stuff before it was even, he spoke in a totally different language from what we heard.
Yeah.
And if you could speak his language, like you were going to get something out of it. So coming down to like school starting, I had signed up for classes at Tech, and I'd signed up for classes at Kent. So, and they're both giving me the same amount of scholarship money.
Right.
So I'm just waiting for Dick to decide where he's going.
Yeah.
So literally 3 days before Kent opens up classes, his name, we call him Scooney, Dick Schoonover. So Scooney calls me, he says, hey, I'm staying at Kent. Great, now I got to call Danny Hall and tell him I'm not coming to him for a second time. Once out of high school, and Danny, I appreciate the offer, but he goes, good decision, Ted. Great, off the phone.
He said that?
Because he knows what, he was trying to hire the guy.
Yeah.
He knows what he's got.
Yeah.
And so he was the head pitching coach at Kent State for 6 years. He had the pitcher of the year in the conference all 6 years he was there. So I roll in as a third baseman, and in 2 years, I leave as pitcher of the year in the conference. And I just followed him around like a lost puppy. Whatever he did, I did.
Yeah.
Like whatever he said, he'd be walking with shagging balls in the outfield. I was on his hip. I got 2 years to figure this crap out.
Yeah.
So, and it bought me 7 years of pro ball.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Got drafted.
Not luck, hard work. Hard work and determination. There's no luck. I tell people this all the time. Luck's for people who are never prepared. Because it does happen. Sure. Like people win the lottery, that's fucking luck. Right. But you prepared yourself from day one. Your dad prepared you from saying no to you 3 times from 7, 8, and 9 years old. But your dad was a baseball guy. Protecting you back then. Like now you put all the pieces together and you're like, man, no wonder you were so fucking good.
Well, he was a genius. Dad was a genius. Like he didn't have to say a whole lot, and just. But I got 2 sisters that are just like, I'm actually the real dumb one in the family. Like I'm the guy that could hit and throw the curveball. My older sister was class valedictorian.
Oh my goodness.
She's undergrad up at Case Western biochemistry.
Oh my God.
Got her doctorate degree in toxicology. She's a drug doctor now.
Yeah.
Wow. Little sister's got her master's in deaf education. Like she
blew you out of the water.
I was a good athlete.
Right.
I had decent grades on because they made me.
Right.
But
me
nothing
too.
like those 2 that I was sandwiched in between in high school.
Yeah.
So, and mom and dad never were like smacking heads. It just.
Is Scoon?
Scooney passed.
He did.
Yeah. He passed 12 years ago. We all flew up. There was a lot of people there. The year before I transferred in, Kent State was #1 in the country in earned run average. And the year before, they were #2 in the country in earned run average.
As a matter of fact,
Dustin Hermanson was on that team, third pick in the draft.
what round did you get drafted in?
I got in the 14th.
Round.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I just had a flashback. So I want to share this with everybody, and you'll appreciate this because I tell people this all the time. I don't remember a lot of like what I did in college.
Right.
I think I blocked a lot of it out. And I did a lot of great things, but not like what you did, but I did a lot of great things. And I think because of the one thing that didn't happen in my life was not getting drafted, I don't remember a lot of my high school days. I don't remember a lot of my college days. And it's sad. But you just bringing that up, and back in the day, everybody, just so you know, there was no internet, and you got the USA Today, and I think your pitching staff was on the page of the USA in '93.
Yeah. There was
a picture of you guys. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
They were, and that was the biggest thing ever, guys. If you made the USA Today, it was like you were like a god.
That team had 2 first-rounders on their pitching staff that year at Kent State University. Like, yes. Where? Like, yeah, up south of Cleveland, kind of near Canton. Like, Hall of Fame. Yeah, a little town.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Hermanson was the 3rd pick in the draft, and then in the supplemental first round, their number 2 starter, Travis Miller. I think Hermie got like 13 years in the big leagues, and Travis Miller pieced together another 3 or 4. But their other 2 starters went in the 4th and 6th round, and they had like 8 guys drafted that year. 5 of them were pitchers, and Scooney was just cranking them out, man. Just go somewhere near him. His aura is like
just learn.
So he was definitely, outside of Dad and everything that he was able to do, like that was a guy that the word was gospel when he said it. It's like, and there were guys on our staff that didn't quite get it. Like they couldn't speak the language. They thought some of his things were funny, and it's like, you're just not gonna get it.
Yeah, then you're not gonna.
But the ones that just dove in head first.
And you met him at the Cape.
Met him at the Cape. Dad said, "Hey, man," and
there's a reason.
And the guys in
that
Falmouth
happens in life. By the way, you're from. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just sometimes I speak. You went from South Carolina to the Cape Cod League. That guy's in Kent State, and you guys. That's where you guys meet, and then you're like, "That's the guy I'm going to follow." Right. So you are a very, very smart young man. You were smart in the things you wanted to be smart at. Just like I always say, like, I think I'm a very smart. Even when people thought I was just this dumb jock, I was just smart in other ways because you realized that dude was going to give you the best chance to get to the big leagues.
So I went back to the Cape the next year as a pitcher. And had a much better year.
Yeah.
And then my head coach was the same head coach. He said, you going to swing it this summer? I said, I don't want to take at bats away from guys that actually need at bats. I'm going to hit some when I go back to Kent no matter what. I was good enough to do it. I was like, give these guys the at bats. I don't need to be stealing somebody's at bat throughout the middle of the week. I'm good. I'm going to come here. I'm going to work on some other stuff. And I'd slide. Scooney was in Falmouth still. I'd slide down and we'd play them, They were in our division, so we'd see them, every 10 days. Right. So it was always a quick.
Oh, you weren't even playing on his team?
No, hell no. I was in Harwich.
Oh, yeah.
Had to drive 30 minutes to go see him. But I would have drove 30 hours to go see him.
Right.
Once I got a taste of what he was doing and stuff.
But how did you catch wind of him? Like, so that's even crazy.
Being in Falmouth, it was just Dad, because Dad was connected with all the coaches in the Big Ten, the Mid-American Conference, and Kent being the Mid-American Conference. Dad placed a phone call, probably to Kent, and got Danny on and say, "Hey, you got Dick's phone number?" "Yep, got his phone number." "Hey, Ted's going to come see you."
Right. And by the way, that's how it worked, guys. There was no texting. It was a phone call.
Landline, baby.
Landline. Everybody picked up their phone back then.
And I remember calling the first time, and I got Joe, his wife, got Joe on the phone. And I said, "Joe," "this is Ted Rose." She goes, "Oh, Dick told me you'd be calling." I said, "Yeah, just tell him I'm going to meet him at that Friendly's on Falmouth." Everything up north's got a Friendly.
Yeah, Friendly's.
I'll meet him there, and then he could take me to the ballpark, because I didn't know exactly where the Falmouth field was that first year. And we rolled in, and then I was hooked, man. I was hooked.
So that took you into your pro career. Talk about that.
In pro ball, and you say it again, you jump another level and you look around and you're like, well, I was the pitcher of the year in the conference. Yeah, well, so was these other 9 guys on my staff over here. Yeah. Oh, by the way, this guy's 18 and throws 94. Right? So you know, and then once again, you're just trying to figure it out. You know, okay, you get your brains beat in a little bit, and you're like, well, why? And then you figure it out. And I wouldn't say my rookie year was not a great year. Coming in probably on fumes from the college season, and you know, halfway through that year, just things at bottom. I mean, tired and nothing hurting, but you know, just arm fatigue and.
Nobody even talked about that back.
I actually led the league in home runs allowed in the Appy League in 1996. That's a stat you want to lead the league in.
Yeah, not
so,
your pitcher.
So that wasn't good. But went into spring training the next year in 97, and you know, some guys had some injuries, and I probably shouldn't have moved up to the high A season that year, but started the year in the bullpen because there were some injuries and stuff, and caught lightning in a bottle in the first couple months. And by the All-Star break, I was in the starting rotation, and it just seems like that summer there wasn't anything I could do wrong. Like the hard hit balls were finding gloves, you know, and the good pitches were being missed, and the bad pitches were getting popped up, you know, just living in a tree. And you know, being a senior draft and not a lot of money, like it's going to buy me another year, is what it's going to do.
When he says things like that, everybody, just so you understand, it's like if you're playing basketball and you feel like you're going to score 30 that night and you score 30. Like it's like when that stuff happens, it's in this like almost make-believe state when you're like, how does that happen? Why can't that happen for the rest of my life? Right. Like, yeah.